The Diplomat, a culture shock. Disclaimer: this article includes mentions of suicide. If this topic is sensitive for you, please read with care. My father was a diplomat, and due to his line of work, we lived in different countries for most of my upbringing. We lived in a foreign country for 4 years, where he worked in the Yemen embassy as a diplomatic official. And then we would move back to our home station in the capital of Yemen, Sana'a, for 2 years. One of my father's diplomatic assignments was in Washington, D.C. I started kindergarten in D.C. It was one of my first school experience. I loved school, excelling as a straight A student and being pretty good at math, English, and sports. I remember I would cry if I missed the school bus. My older sister, Maysoon, and I fell in love with life in America. She was a straight A student as well, and was really talented in gymnastics. It was the happiest memory of our childhood. We lived in the Watergate building complex, which had a nice park, a swimming pool, an arcade game, and a recreation center. There were a lot of kids in the building, and we had a big group of friends, and we would go on these fun adventures: snow sledding in the winter, Easter egg hunting in the spring, swimming in the summer, and Halloween trick-or-treating in the fall. We sure did spend a lot of time in the arcade center and playing at the park. I was always a gentle child, and my older sister, Maysoon, was only 18 months older than me. She was kind of a tomboy and the leader of the gang. She wasn't scared of anything and loved adventures. One day, while we were playing at the park and she was swinging away on the monkey bars, I begged her to help me climb the monkey bars like she did. She said she would grab my feet as I moved my hand from one bar to another. I did it. I was having a blast. I couldn't believe it. For the first time, I was able to swing across the monkey bars just like my big sister and her friends did. As I was about halfway through, somebody called my sister to go play with them, and she immediately let go of my feet to join them, causing me to fall over right away, and just like that, I broke my arm. I cried and screamed until my lips turned blue. My father came and picked me up, and we went to the doctor. I had to wear a cast on my arm for 2 weeks. I had to go to school with it. It felt itchy, so my friend showed me how to scratch my arm by slipping a pen underneath the cast. The kids at school signed it and drew funny pictures on it. 2 weeks later, I went back to the doctor and we got it removed. My arm was good as new. I was born in Moscow while my dad was posted there. The Russian nurses with their thick accents pronounced my name Macha with a deep Cha sound. My dad thought it was hilarious, and just like that, my nickname was born. Macha became Machashku, which turned into Chashku and eventually settled into Chash. But my dad didn't stop there. He turned my nickname into a lullaby, a song he made up just for me. Chashmagash will chashmagash kuya chashmagash. It was all made up language that made no sense, but it stuck long into my adulthood. The best part, every one of us had our own special nickname and song. For Maysoon, it was Maysoona, Maysoona, Maysoon, well, Maysoona, Maysoon, Maysoona. To this day, when my dad talks to me, it's never just Maha, it's Chash. And no matter how old I get, hearing it still makes me feel like his little girl. My mother was light-skinned and had frizzy hair. Not the kind that would curl when styled. It was poofy, black, short, and thick. "You lucked out. You have your father's hair," she would say to my sister and me. "Smooth, silky, and shiny. You don't have to deal with this frizz every day." She had a timeless and classic white midi wrap dress with light green vertical stripes, the type that wraps to accentuate the waistline, with a belt made out of the same fabric as the dress, tying it into a bow on the side. We were about to go out one day, and she told me, "I need to go get dressed." I said to her, "You're going to go wear your white striped dress." She turned around in surprise. "How did you know I was going to wear that dress?" "It's the only dress you wear. look at all your photos. And I actually grabbed a photo from the living room decorative shelf and held it in front of her face. She laughed, as if it was a revelation to her. This girl notices every little detail. It's the only dress that makes me look thin and makes me feel good, she murmurs as she walks into her closet. Unlike many women from Yemen who live in DC, she didn't have to wear a hijab because my father didn't make her do so like the other husbands did. She enrolled in a night school that taught English as a foreign language. She only took a couple of classes before quickly dropping out, saying it was too difficult. My uncle Abdulaziz, my mother's brother, lived in the same apartment complex as we did and was the one who recommended it to my dad. I loved my uncle. Even though he was the same age as my father and they were good old friends from school, he felt younger and more excited about life. He was warm and playful, always picking me up when he saw me, giving me a kiss and handing me a piece of candy. His wife, Bilgis, had their 3 daughters, Angela, Rosa, and Andrea, in Washington, D.C., which made them American citizens. My uncle loved to spoil them. They always had the newest toys, the best dolls, and the nicest clothes. My mother didn't trust him, though. She said he had turned my father against her since they had been close friends since before she married my father. So I had to hide that I loved my uncle. To me, he was the cool American dad. He was warm and easygoing, so different from my father, who only bought us what was necessary and practical. My father was the kind of dad who showed up when it mattered, but kept his emotions to himself. Unlike everyone else in the expat community, their entire family spoke American English with impeccable grammar and without a hint of an Arabic accent. They had already been living in the States for 4 years when we arrived. Originally, my uncle was supposed to attend graduate school for 2 years on a scholarship from Yemen, but he ended up staying for 12 years because he loved the lifestyle too much to leave. 12 years to earn a master's degree in literature, my dad would tease him. My aunt Bilgis was the only one of the wives who held a driver's license and knew how to operate a motor vehicle in DC. Not only did she know how to drive, but she also owned a 2-door sports car with leather seats. I think it might have been a Honda CRX, but from the way the other Yemeni wives talked about it, you would think it was a Ferrari. Yes, but she's too scared to drive on the highway, my mom would comfort herself as she spoke to whomever was on the other line. Trying to keep up with Aunt Bilgis, it wasn't long before my mother enrolled in driving school. That meant she had to be in a car alone with a strange man, sitting right beside her for 50 hours, teaching her how to drive. My father and uncle tried to find her a female driving teacher who spoke and understood Arabic. They only succeeded in finding the latter. She took a few lessons and quickly quit, deciding that driving was too scary and dangerous. "It's me, your brother Ali from America. How are you? How are the kids?" I woke up to my father's yelling voice one day at 2 a.m. As I made my way through the dark living room, I saw both of my parents sitting at the dining table, the yellow coiled cord dangling between the handle by his ears and the rotary phone sitting on the dining table. They spoke in Arabic. My mother frantically looking at her watch, counting the minutes as she pulled the phone from my father's ears. "It's my turn now. I need to talk to my family before the 5 minutes are up." She urged him to hang up. After they hung up, my mother wiped her tears. "Why are you crying, Mom?" I asked. "I miss my mom. I miss my family. I miss Yemen. In the 2 years we lived here, I only spoke to them once because long-distance phone calls are very expensive." My mother has her own mother? It had never occurred to me. Go back to bed. It's late. You have school in the morning. My dad tucked me back in. I came back from school the following day, and as I walked into the living room, I saw the ceiling-high shelves thrown in the middle of the living room. The ceramic shelf decor and family photos were smashed into pieces. The coffee table was broken, and the throw pillows were scattered and ripped open on the floor. I heard my mother's hysterical cries come from my parents' bedroom. I rushed into the bedroom and found my mother in the messy bed with my Aunt Bilgis sitting in the front of the edge of the bed, desperately trying to comfort my mother. Yet she was also screaming, and even louder than her. I'm going to kill myself. I'm telling you, I'm going to do it. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live here. I want to die. I want to die, my mother cried to my aunt. Calm down. Look at your daughter. Maha's here, as she grabbed my tiny shoulders with her two hands. You have kids and they need you. You can't leave them alone, my aunt hysterically screams back to my mother. My mother grabbed a bottle of pills, of I don't know what. It was sitting on the nightstand beside her, popped it open, and positioned the entire bottleneck in her mouth, screaming in an animalistic sound, ah, 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 while pouring the pills down her throat. There was a mixture of tears, snot, and saliva glistening on her face. I jumped on the bed and opened my mother's jaw with both of my 6-year-old tiny hands, one hand holding her upper jaw and the other holding the lower jaw. I saw the white capsules clogging the front of her throat, and I used my index finger like a hook to scoop them out of her mouth. I could see more pills all over her mouth. I scooped again. I still saw more in all corners of her jaw. I scooped again, and I scooped again, and I scooped again, until I got everything that was visible to my eyes. Not sure if some of the pills had already made their way down her throat and into her stomach. I wanted to look deeper into her throat, but suddenly realized how close I was to her, and my body trembled in terror, scared that she would swing a hand and hurt me. I got off the bed instantly and stepped away from her. She buried her face in a pillow and continued to sob helplessly. I left the room. We spent years in Washington, D.C., from 1980 to 1984, 4 years during which my younger sister Manal was born. My mother had always wanted to have a son. We need a boy in the family to protect us if your father dies. In Muslim religion, women don't inherit much because they marry and they rely on their husband to financially provide. Without a brother to take on the inheritance, your father's 2 brothers would come, take our house, and kick us out onto the streets, she explained. I asked simply, but can't Dad specify in his will that we, his daughters, we keep our home? No, she sharply replied. That's only in American movies. Wills and such things don't exist in Yemen. Our religion doesn't allow for that. We have to abide by the religious constitution. Your father's personal preference and a piece of paper, a will, won't hold up in court. That's the law of our country. Early morning on May 23rd, 1984. My father woke me and Maysoon up. Wake up, he said in an unusually excited tone. Are we late for school? I asked him. No, you're not going to school today. Your mom is in the hospital. She gave birth while you were asleep at night. We're going to go see her, he responded. Whoa, is it a boy? I eagerly asked. No, it's a girl, he responded. Oh no, I drowned my head in my hands. Now we are 3 girls and no boys. Is Mom sad that she had a girl? Did you leave us alone in the middle of the night when you went to the hospital? What if a burglar came in while we were asleep? Is it okay for us to skip school today? My mind was racing. Let's go, he rushed us out of bed. When we got to the hospital, we learned that Manal came out larger than most newborns. Her nickname in the hospital was Big Baby. Due to her size, the doctor, Zakaria Oasis, a well-renowned obstetrician, had to pull her out and yanked her right arm aggressively, causing permanent nerve damage. Manal's right arm became completely paralyzed. Supposedly, he was the best doctor in the hospital and the head of the department. Both my parents were extremely happy to have found him because he's from an Egyptian descent and he speaks Arabic, making it easier for my mother to communicate with him. The witnessing nurses that were in the delivery room told my parents that we should sue the doctor for malpractice because instead of pulling the baby out by the arm, the doctor should have immediately performed a cesarean delivery. They said that they would testify against him because that was against protocol, and it was not the first time he had done something like this. My father, being the diplomat that he is, did not wish to pursue a lawsuit. Manal would suffer for the rest of her life, having absolutely no sensation or control over her right arm. We later learned in 2001 that Dr. Zakaria Oasis killed his own wife and was sentenced to prison for life in Maryland. Oasis struck his wife of 22 years, the mother of their 2 sons, at least 7 times on the head with a sledgehammer, while his 2 sons were in the house and could hear their mother's screams. His reason for committing this vicious, bloody murder was that he suspected that his wife, Marianne Oasis, a real estate agent, was cheating on him. When his son, Omar Oasis, testified against his father, he was ostracized by his Egyptian family members. Just a few months after my sister Manal was born, it was time for us to pack our things and move back to our home city of Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, our home base. I did not have any memory of Yemen. I was about 2 years old when we last visited. I was born in Moscow, Russia, while my father was working there at the embassy. I didn't know what to expect of Yemen. My sister and I decided to ask my mother, "What is it like in Yemen?" She responded, "There's nothing in Yemen but dirt and trash. There are no swimming pools, no arcade centers, no playgrounds for kids. There's no Chuck E. Cheese, King's Dominion, or water park. There's no need for you to pack your swimsuits or roller skates. We're going to leave these things behind. Maybe give them to your cousins, Angela and Rosa, since they wear the same sizes as the 2 of you." A dark cloud of sadness hovered over my sister and me during those last weeks in D.C. We knew that our lives were about to change for the worse. We said goodbye to our park friends and classmates and told them that we were going to go to a place where there's nothing but dirt and trash. A stranger at home. During the first week we returned to Yemen, we stayed at my grandfather's house, my mother's father, the one with the 11 wives, while our own house was still being furnished. It was part of a trio house. My uncle's was right next to my grandfather's, and ours was adjacent to his. In fact, all my mother's siblings had purchased homes in the same neighborhood. It was this super modern development. It was nicknamed the New Neighborhood. And where my parents grew up was now called Old Sana'a. This was a brand new development built by a Chinese real estate company. All the new homes had solar panels on their roofs. Remarkable for the 80s, and especially in a country like Yemen, we were the first people to live in our house. We got news that my uncle, my grandfather's son from one of his other wives, was involved in a motorcycle crash and died instantly. He was in his early 30s. I only remember hearing loud screams and sobbing, and then the next 40 days were devoted to his wake. Women wore black from head to toe, while men dressed as they pleased. The women weren't allowed to wear any makeup, perfume, or even nail polish. They gathered by the hundreds in a circle and cried. My sister Maysoon and I went with our mother every day during that 40-day wake. One day, a young woman wearing all black stepped into the room. She was tall, thin, and light-skinned, though noticeably pale. She positioned herself at the center of the circle of grieving women, and then threw herself to the floor as she screamed and sobbed, scratching her face with her long, still polished red nails. Her long, shiny, thick, dark hair fell messy, tangling her pretty face. It's his wife. His widow, Jamila's mom, my 8-year-old cousin whispered in my ear. The other women, trying to pull her hands away, cried out, "Stop! It's a sin! Astaghfirullah!" and then continued to scream even louder, urging her to seek repentance and express remorse. Trying to make sense of this new world through my little girl's eyes, it seemed that the louder you cried, the more you were seen as caring. For a second, I tried to chime in, wanting to be a good girl and show that I cared about my uncle, whom I had never met. I tried to scream and sob like the adults, but quickly stopped out of embarrassment. I lacked their vocal energy, and no one even noticed me anyway. I was invisible. That was my introduction to a new chapter of my life in Yemen. School started only a few days after. I entered the 3rd grade. To my surprise, the entire curriculum was in Arabic. Living in DC, I never learned how to read or write in Arabic. My father tried to teach me here and there, and we did speak Arabic at home while in DC, but my Arabic was very broken. I could not read even one complete sentence at school. I started failing, and failing miserably in every class, even math, the class that I excelled at the most in DC. But now I'm failing at it. My math teacher was an older woman from India. Her name was Mrs. V. For some reason, Mrs. V did not like me one bit. One day she came up to my seat, knowing very well that I couldn't, and asked me to stand up in front of the entire class and solve a math problem. I stood there, said nothing, and with deep shame lowered my gaze to the floor. She raised her hand high up, arm filled with golden bangles, and swung a slap across my face. I was terrified, feeling embarrassed in front of all my classmates, using all my willpower to hold my tears from falling by trying not to breathe. I didn't tell anybody at home what happened. I was so scared that my parents would find out and punish me for not knowing how to solve the math problem. I held on to this secret until this day as I write this book. This is the first time that I mention this incident. Violence was not foreign to me. It was not the first time that I was being slapped in the face. Definitely not the last time Mrs. V slapped me in the face. At home, my father was already blaming me for failing at school. As a punishment, I was not allowed to go out and play or have any friends over. I would spend my day at school and the remaining waking hours after school studying and learning how to read and write Arabic. After all, kids my age and grade level were already reading and memorizing the entire verses of the Quran. My father was embarrassed by his daughter not speaking his native tongue properly. It was a bad reflection of his parenting. Even my sister was catching up quickly and adapting well to our new life. At school and at home, I was being called dumb, stupid, and lazy. I internalized it and completely believed it. Everybody else was doing great. Why wasn't I? It must be me. I am dumb, stupid, and lazy. We stayed in Yemen for 2 full years. During those years, I continued to struggle with my school grades, but I was able to make good friends and adapt as much as I could. It was during that time frame I met my best friend, Abir. It happened at a grand wedding held at my aunt's mansion. My aunt, by the way, is married to a sheikh. More on that in upcoming pages. Abir, the sheikh's granddaughter from one of his many wives, immediately caught my eye. There she was, a little girl with long, dark brown curly hair, sharp hazel eyes, and a beauty mark perfectly placed on the top of her left cheek. She looked absolutely adorable in her white and blue floral mini dress, the kind of layered 80s dress with a V-neck and puff sleeves that was so trendy at the time. And wouldn't you know it, I was wearing almost the exact same poofy dress. The moment we locked eyes, I couldn't help but scream, "Oh my God, it's you!" Before sprinting over and we immediately hugged and jumped, she looked just as thrilled as I was. "What grade are you in?" she asked in wide-eyed amazement. "3rd grade. You?" I replied. "Me too. What school do your parents send you to?" she inquired. "Azal," I answered proudly, the only private school in the country where even the president's kids attended. "Me too," she squealed in excitement, and before we knew it, we were both jumping up and down, giggling uncontrollably. From that moment on, we became inseparable. Looking back, it felt as if I'd known her in another lifetime. Somehow, in that instant, I already felt a deep connection with her, like we were long-lost friends reunited. The universe, it seemed, had sent me an ally to help me navigate the wild tragedies in the journey of life ahead of me. Abir was the cheerleader, the confidant, and the best friend anyone could ever wish for. My mother was as happy as she could be during our time in Yemen. She had friends and a big extended family. Her sisters and brothers all lived within the same street as ours, only a few steps away. I always say that our home was like a hotel lobby, people coming in and out through the door constantly. We never knew who would drop in for lunch or stop by to say hi. In Yemen, lunch is the main and most important meal of the day, not dinner. We would sit on the floor, shoulder to shoulder in a circle around a laid-out plastic tablecloth, except there's no table. The plastic cloth is on the floor to protect the Persian rug underneath. There's rarely a dining table in any conventional household. It is tradition to eat on the floor with your hands. I used silverware to eat rice and salads and was, of course, mocked for doing so. She's so Americanized. Come look at Maha. She eats with a fork like a civilized lady. My uncle or a cousin would laugh and point at me. There are a lot of stews and a lot of dipping dishes, but a Yemeni meal cannot be complete without the famous helba, a dish made out of ground fungu Greek seeds. This is a carousel with lamb as the main element, a stew served in a sizzling hot stone pot. The appearance of fungu dip makes the dish more flavorful. The tenderness of the meat is something you can hardly resist. It's usually served first before the other dishes, along with Middle Eastern pita bread and zahawig hot sauce for dipping. We, of course, considered ourselves a progressive modern family, and both genders of the family, my mother, my father, and us three daughters, would all eat together. If my uncles or cousins joined us, we all ate together as well. In a more traditional household, the wife and the daughters of the family wake up early in the morning and go straight to the kitchen, preparing an elaborate lunch meal for the men of the family. Everything is made from scratch. The chopping, the washing, the boiling. I once went with my grandmother to the butcher and watched her pick a live chicken from the coop. This one, she pointed. Within minutes, the butcher then came out with a plastic bag and handed her the chopped chicken. If the daughters also go to school, the moment they return from school, they rush into the kitchen to help the mother prepare the meal. When the father and sons of the family return from work and school, the sons will go outside and play soccer or take a nap or go gat shopping with their father. When the food is ready, the women then serve the lunch, where only the men and any other male extended family members eat first. Once the men finish their lunch, the women come out from hiding in the kitchen and clear out the lunch back into the kitchen. They will then sit on the kitchen floor and eat the leftovers. Our living room, shaped just like a standard room with 4 walls and a regular sized door, is used for everything. It serves as a dining room, living room, and TV room. It had a U-shaped majlis, a Middle Eastern floor sofa framing all 3 walls and corners of the living room. The front and fourth wall are cleared for the TV, entertainment devices, and madara, a traditional pure tobacco water pipe. Unlike hookah, this ancient, very large water pipe is made out of an elaborately and intricately engraved steel water bowl. There's a long hose that attaches to the spout of the water bowl from one end, and the opposite end of the hose is the mouthpiece from which the smoker inhales. The wooden neck, considered the body of the madara, attaches the water bowl from its bottom end and the tobacco head bowl on the top end. The head bowl with holes at the bottom holds the pure, unflavored tobacco and lit charcoal on top. When the smoke is inhaled from the mouthpiece and passes through the water bowl, it makes a gurgling sound. This sound would later serve as an alarm system that would inform me that my mother is still awake and that I should stay put in my room. It's a cultural social habit for both men and women to smoke madara and chew gat on a daily basis from afternoon to sunset. When they are in social gatherings, some, like my mother, return home and continue to smoke and chew until sunrise. There were always kids playing around in the house, and our home phone never stopped ringing. My mother is always invited to weddings and social events. My mother didn't even complete the 6th grade and can barely read and write. That's not uncommon for women her age in Yemen. She was actually considered privileged that she even went to school. When we would travel to foreign countries with my father, my mother would tremendously struggle with the change in lifestyle and culture. She didn't speak English, didn't make any friends. There was no gat or mada'a. She felt lonely and isolated. My father, on the other hand, was a diplomatic official. He had earned a master's in economics and studied in Moscow, Russia, after earning a full scholarship. He spoke English, Russian, and a little Italian as well. For men of his generation, that was a pretty big deal back then. 50% of the population in Yemen, both men and women, in this day and age, remain illiterate and live below the line of poverty. My father also was a lot older than my mother, 20 to 25 years older. No one knows the exact year they were born. It's all a guess. To my knowledge, my father is the only man in the entire nation that does not chew gat, smoke mada'a, or wear a jambia belt. How come you don't wear a jambia like my uncles and all the other men, Dad? I asked him one day. Because my beloved country has suffered tremendously due to violence and lack of education, and I refuse to participate in this tragic way of living that is passed from one generation to another. A jambia is a dagger, a weapon, and many people in our country have died. They chew gat all day, a drug that impairs their cognitive functioning, and then they get into meaningless, heated arguments. Someone says something they don't like, and the dagger is easily accessible. They pull it out and stab. Some even trace the dagger edge in poison, so that the moment the knife cuts another person, there is no chance for survival, he explained to me. My mother heard our conversation and chimed in immediately. It's because he's not man enough to protect us. He's the head of the household, a household filled with girls. She gives him a look. What are you going to do if someone breaks in and attacks us? Are you going to hand him a book and try to educate him out of killing us and raping us? There was always this dynamic between them. My mother looking down on my father, and my father fighting to prove himself with his intellect. He was a self-made man, an orphan that didn't have shoes as a kid growing up. And he made sure that we knew that on a consistent basis. All he had was his innate intellect. He was smart at school and studied his way up the social hierarchy. The school, or what in Yemen is called madrasa, being an outdoor shack, made out of straws and nested in the dirt ground, and the teacher, an old wise man with a stick in his hand, whooping the students around. They read and studied the Quran and learned how to memorize verses. Now that I'm older and have a more expansive perspective on life, I really do appreciate and honor my father's intelligence and resourcefulness. What he did was nothing short of a hero's journey. He was an orphan with zero leverage, money, or connections, living in a forgotten part of the world where people die because they don't have enough food or clean water. He said he would sleep hungry most nights, and that he lost his big toenail from walking barefoot on the dirt rocky streets and playing soccer with the kids from the block with no shoes on. He continued to excel in school and enjoyed reading books, and somehow managed to get a scholarship to study in Moscow and earned a master's degree in economics. My mother, however, was never inspired by my father. Her sister, my aunt, was married to a sheikh. The sheikh was my grandfather's close friend, and his age too. The two men struck a deal, and my grandfather gave his friend his 13-year-old daughter's hand in marriage. The sheikh also was married to four wives at the same time, and my aunt was the pretty young one, his favorite. Sound familiar? I remember seeing cousins my age being fed and bathed by their servants, something that you would see in movies like Eddie Murphy's character in Coming to America. At 10 years old, my cousin was wearing a $50,000 diamond Rolex to school. She would come pick me up with her motorcade to go shopping with stacks of cash in her bag. At their 5-story castle and surrounding compound that was their home, they hung photos of them on a sailboat with Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy. They had an elevator and indoor swimming pool with a full-blown recreation center and a farm in their backyard where they grew all their food. They had horses and farm animals. They would always share these tales with us of them traveling first class and meeting with world leaders. We were actually considered the poor kids of the family, the working class family. My father worked for the government and actually had a job and a paycheck. As a result, my mother and father did not get along. They slept in separate bedrooms for most of my recollection. They argued and had nasty fights, and it would get ugly and even physical. Surprisingly, it was my mother that was physically violent. She would beat my father. Breaking things around the house and throwing things at him, she would hurt and beat us violently as well. Her favorite weapon was the electrical cords. She would unplug them from the closest device and whip us with it until we bled. She was miserably angry and never learned how to be happy. Reflecting on that now that I'm older, I believe that she had a mental illness that was never addressed or resolved. That was life at home. My highly educated diplomat father looked down on my mother, seeing her as a savage. My miserable mother, insanely jealous of her rich sister, felt regret that she could have done better and made sure that she reminded everyone in our family of that on a daily basis. This was an excerpt from my upcoming memoir. Stay tuned for more. P.S. My memoir is complete and has been sitting on my laptop for months, staring at me like, now what? If you know a publisher or can slip it to Oprah or Reese, I'll owe you yoga classes for life.